So why are we biased? Here we are, 2020, 21st century, and why are we talking about this still? It's because our brains are wired towards bias. And we make general assumptions about people, objects, things, and a lightning fast response. So for example, if you're this little girl and you see a bear running at you, you don't stop and think, what kind of bear is that? I wonder if the bear is hungry. What does the bear eat? You don't do those things, right? You turn and you run. So this is your fight or flight mechanism kicking in. Now, for survival, it's an excellent mechanism where we see something, we size it up in milliseconds, and we take action. But our brain actually works against us when it comes to people because we overlook the subtle, more important distinctions in people and the nuances in people. The other reason that our brains are wired towards bias is that our old caveman brain used to believe that we had to be surrounded by people who look like us to feel safe. We now know that is not the case. And actually, the data shows just the opposite. You don't have to be around people that look and act just like you to be safe. We actually know that diverse groups and teams are actually more productive, more innovation, more creativity. So we know that we've evolved since our caveman days. So here's the bottom line to take away from this is bias is habitual. We get into these patterns where we're sizing people up and we're making assumptions about people right away, but it's not inevitable. And that's a really key point. It's habitual, but it's not inevitable. The habitual part is it's the shortest mental route to making a decision. So for example, when it comes to race, within 120 milliseconds of seeing someone who may be of a different race, we're already making assumptions. But the good news is it's not inevitable, and there are things we can do that we're going to discuss today to interrupt that process. So let's go ahead and press on. So as I was saying here, our brains are wired towards bias. And it's great when it comes to fight or flight, but it works against us because we dismiss the subtle, more important distinctions in people. Height, weight, introverts, we're going to talk about a few of these. Let's look at height for a moment. So, did you know we had a height bias? So what the bias is we naturally look to taller people as leaders, naturally. And I'll give you an example. That's highly relevant. This is a study out of Princeton. In every single US presidential election, the taller candidate has won, with the exception of one. There's one exception to that rule. So at every single US presidential election, the taller candidate has won. Does anyone want to guess what that one is? And I'll give you a hint. It's not what's going on right now. If Bruno said Biden, yes, I'm going to comment on that in a moment. Bush, which Bush? Hooray for tall people. Nope, not Bush Sr. I'll give you a hint. It was the year 2000. Junior, you got it. Okay, I see several juniors coming up. Yes, George W. Bush is shorter than Al Gore. Al Gore was the taller candidate. Now, there is a second exception I would add to this. Joe Biden is actually shorter than Donald Trump. So there's been two exceptions now. So this study that was done doesn't have current day, of course. And it goes back about 30, 40 years. But it's fascinating that we do look at people who are taller. So if you have a 6'4" individual standing in the front of a room, and you have a 5'2" individual standing in the front of the room, male or female, we naturally look to the taller person as a leader. Now, is that true? Are short people not leaders? Absolutely not. But it's a very common biases that we hold, and often it's a unconscious bias.